So now moving on to step 7, this is incisively focus on outcomes. Remember the macro and micro conversions that we've talked about? If they don't have macro and micro conversions set up, if they don't have them, they don't have a clue about the power of the web. And so a really quick way to figure this out is to find out if they have goals. And I'm showing you the overview page under conversions, which is under goals. And so if you go there, if you go under conversions and then under goals and then overview, if they do not have any goals, you're not going to see these guys here where it says goal conversion rates can be 0. You're not going to see some of these numbers where it says goal 1 completions, goal 2 completions, whatever they've named them. And if they don't have those, it doesn't mean that you jump ship with the client. It just means that they really don't understand about how they could be using the web. And so at this point, you might up your fee. You might realize that you're in for a long haul here, a long, hard uphill battle. And it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to fight you every step of the way. It just means it's a lot more work for you to do because you're going to have to educate them on how to tie the web to their business strategy. But let's say that they do have goals. And so what that does is it shows you how quickly, it shows you quickly what the client believes is important. And so you're able to go here and look at, what they have for goal 1, what they have for goal 2, what they have for goal 3, so on and so forth. And what's really cool is go back to those macro and micro conversions from our earlier steps and look and see if there's a match. Let's see, these goals are important to your client. Is there a match between what you're seeing and what they're seeing? Now, this does not mean that you cross out your micro and macro goals and change it to what the client's goals are, because this actually begins a really good conversation with your client in terms of, hey, listen, when I was going on your site, I see your goals in your goals report, and I see that you set them up, and your first goal is purchase completed, your second goal is engaged users, your third goal is registrations, your fourth goal is entered checkout, and your fifth goal is smart goals, or at least that's what they have them labeled here as. And those are great, or they're not, but you say, I noticed those. But when I was looking at the site, what I saw, what I could discern without having talked to you, is that your macro goal was this and your micro goal was this, and it's not matching. And so maybe it's a matter of changing the format of their website. Maybe it's a matter of having a conversation about what the real goals are and why they have those real goals, and then being able to make some adjustments. Get any valuable information from this, you're going to have to do segmentation. And so you can see that I have created a segment here by clicking over on the country, and I'm now looking at the different countries. So I'm looking at goals by country, and so now I can go over and look at goal 1 and see completions, and I can see purchases. And again, I'm just choosing countries because why not? So maybe I wanted to see the differences or how we're doing in the US versus India versus Turkey versus the UK. And so here's what my results are. You can find this under acquisition, all traffic, and then sources, medium. So again, acquisition, all traffic, source/medium. And then you just go under users, and then you choose country as a primary dimension. So you go to acquisition, you go all traffic, you click on source medium, and you get this report. And then you go over here to the primary dimension, you drop down, and you can choose users, and then I'm going to just choose country. And so it gives me this report, again, United States, Turkey, India, and I said the UK. You could also obviously look at Mexico. And so here I'm able to look at, and you can do this by all goals. And you can look at all goals, goal completions that are between different countries. I can look at just goal 1 and see how that fared. Obviously, value is really crappy here. Actually, let's see. So I think they're all going to be 0. But you can get an idea for their conversion rate as well. One of the things I would do is go back to Google and say, listen, your goals are not monetized. When you don't monetize your goals, it's really hard to track the value of them because right now they all look the same. So you could just stop right now. Let's say that there's dollar figures in there. You could stop at this stage just in goal 1. You can help identify the value. You can track all the quotes from the website, for example. So like this, you know, I can take, because they don't have a value for goal 1. You know, I might, I think goal 1 is purchase completed. You know, obviously it's pretty easy. I can just take the number of people who have completed purchases and divide it by the amount purchased. So the total amount purchased added up, divided by the number of people who purchased, get an average purchase value. Every time somebody clicks on the site, that obviously is worth something, so an average of X. And so that would help, you know, I'd go into my goal settings and put that in here. But if you do this, then you understand that the client is sophisticated, because I know that they have goals, and that they're using them and thinking through macro and micro conversions. You know, if they have goals, what they are. You know the delta between goals and the macro and micro conversions, because I can compare them. You know, I can go with a little bit of column capture. I can go and take these values versus these values on goal 3 versus goal 2, right? So I can take all these goals and compare them to see how each of the goals are doing. And like I said, we can do some basic segmentation. And you know, you don't have to just do that. Maybe you're more interested in keywords or medium, or maybe you're interested in the source. I mean, there's lots of ways to segment without having to do custom reports. So pretty quick and dirty. Yes, you can take a look at the all sources report. And so what this does is it allows us to even further dig down into the company and figure out what sources are working really well for the company. And so the way that you find this is under acquisition and then sources, acquisition, all traffic, and then sources / medium. And you're going to want to look below the Explorer tab and select the goal you want to analyze. And so the Explorer tab's right here. And you're just going to click on the goal that you wish to analyze here. And so then you can further segment. You can go down here and you can click keyword and medium and source, and it allows us to segment this. And so again, you can also do this with e-commerce analysis. It would be done exactly the same way, except you'd focus on e-commerce. The only difference is you're going to make a note of which products are selling the highest versus what sources are pushing your website to the front. And so on your notepad for your client, you're going to write down any missing or misconfigured business goals. So again, this comes from looking at the business goals, and if you have macro and micro conversions that you've already identified, they have no goals, that's easy, they're all missing, right? But you also might have that conversation about, hey, we have some differences here. Misconfigured goals would be maybe something that happened with the Google Merchandise Store, right? They have a goal, and actually I have one of the clients that I'm dealing with right now that I found today. Their goal has 0 traffic, and that's not right. So something's wrong, and it actually comes down to something's wrong with your URL that we need to fix. And so that's a misconfigured business goal. Or even you could say to Google, like I said, the Google Merchandise Store, saying, hey, listen, you're missing out here. The micro conversions have no value. Let's get that done. The gap also between what the business is pimping versus the customer is looking for. So the business might be pushing out there A, and the customer wants B, 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 B. How do I know that? Because they're searching for it, and they're getting to our site and they're searching for it. But we're still focusing on A. And so let the customer drive some of your business strategy, because that's what they're looking for. Now, it's not to say that we have to always do whatever the customer wants. We have to change our website based on everything the customer's searching for. Not a bad strategy, but we also can lure them in to some of the products that they might not have known they wanted. But it's this balance of both of these things. So we want to look at the gaps, and then obviously bring them closer together. So again, you're just identifying the gap between what the business is selling versus what your customers are actually buying, or even concluding as goals. And so, you know, make sure that you're watching the sources and how they're coming in, and the different behaviors. Twitter might function differently than email, for example. Then you want to look at where does the most value come from, or you looked at where the most value comes from. And so that would be the segmentation. And so you might look at country or keyword, or maybe a specific campaign like an email blast, and you might find that you have a surprise where the most amount of value is coming from. And so that might be one specific surprise that you want to share. Step 8 is optimizing the marketing campaigns, or the marketing and campaigns, I guess. And so we're going to go back to step 2. We're going to focus on the really badly named, as we decided, other category. And like I said, they've named it social, that includes it, but we also have this chunk called other. And so what we want to do is in step 8, we want to help find where we're doing it badly, where we're doing marketing campaigns poorly. Because what we want to do is reduce the cost of acquisition. And where we're doing it well, we want to do more of it. And so as we said in step 2, if we're doing paid search really well, 34% paid search is above or around what we're looking for. So we're doing that okay, but our direct is lagging. And so, and even going back to that other category, right? And so what we want to do is be able to reduce the cost of acquisition. And I've mentioned this before, hey, we look at this and we say, we might need to back off certain campaigns and put it in other venues. We might need to focus more on organic search because I really feel like we can get these numbers up. That's not even paid, right? So we're going to hyper focus on the cost, on reducing the cost of acquisition, getting the customers to our site. So the way we do that is we're going to go under acquisition, campaigns, and then we're going to go to all campaigns. And what we're looking for is the conversion rates here. We're looking at conversion highs and lows. Which campaigns, so here's the campaigns that they're running, which do less of or more of converting, right? So we're going over here to goal conversion rates, and we have a 32% for this AW electronics. And we have a 0% for all products. That's not good. So that's a big red flag, right? So if the goal value is high and the conversion rate's high, that's what we want to be looking at. Now look at their goal values. Of course, they're all 0 because they have their goals programmed incorrectly. But it allows us then to also contrast free versus earned versus paid media, and to contrast the conversion rates with the different campaigns that we might be running. And so if we spend a lot of money on a campaign with a similar conversion rate and a similar goal value, we're able to determine what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. So let's take a look and see here. Here's an expanded view of what we were looking at before. So here are the campaigns that they're currently running. You can also look at the paid keywords campaigns that they're running, if it loads, and it will show you all the keywords that we're paying to rank. And so here they are. Then you can also look at the organic keywords that are running. So here's some organic keyword campaigns that they're running. And then you can go down here to a cost analysis. And again, this is based on our source, our medium. Then if you go over here, this is the click-through rate, the cost per click, the revenue per click, and the return on advertising spend. And so, right in this, if they're properly calculated and formulated, you might be able to get some monetary value out of this cost analysis. But really what we're going to focus on is up here at this all campaigns report. And so looking at these reports, I can click on this to get some more information about where it's being placed. So it's a CPC campaign running through Google. And so if I go back, again, you can kind of go down through all of these, but what's interesting and what you want to look at is, number one, the bounce rate. So I want my CPC ads bounce rate to be pretty low because I'm controlling where they're going, and that means that my landing page needs to be optimized pretty highly. So if I look at the data share promo, which has a 44, which is an average, we notice that this is affiliate advertising. So that basically means they're on another site, they are using our code, but they are not us. And so I would expect maybe a little bit higher of a bounce rate, which is again pretty accurate here at 44%. It's right around the bounce rate for the sites. It's not a problem. All products, again, CPC. Now here's the problem with the all products. We have a 77% bounce rate. They are doing a lot of volume, but so is the AW Dynamic Search Ads full site. And so we have a problem here, and this would be something I'd be looking at pretty intensely, what's happening. You might have one product that's being paid for that is going to a dead page, and that might be throwing that number completely off. So again, this is kind of one of the things I'd be looking at. The other thing that I'd be looking at, again, is the orbit. So average session duration, pages per session. So they're all right here in terms of behavior. And so these are the things that help us determine hey, you know, look at this AW Electronics. Yeah, so we've had, you know, it accounts for 49% of new sessions, which is below our site value or our site average. But it's a very low bounce rate. They are going deep into the site, and they're staying on our site for quite a long time. And again, I can look at the different, we can just look at all goals here. So I think we were doing what, all products. And so again, goal values aren't calculated, but I do know that there's 51 goal completions, which is about 3% of the total. And so it's not doing, which I think that was what I was looking at, it's not doing terrible in terms of goal completions, but it's not certainly doing as well as my data share promo or my dynamic search ads. So I might even want to compare these ads, like what's happening between these two, especially this one, which is at 61%. What are we doing differently here than we are here? So like I said, the bonus for you is to really compare these two campaigns where you're spending money. You're looking at the conversion rates. You might be looking at the average order value if you want to get into that report. What you're trying to do is judge if the allocation is appropriately distributed. If my average order value is low and I'm dumping a whole lot of money into it, I'm going to kill the campaign, because it's better for me to invest in a campaign that has a higher return on my investment. And so you can, again, you can go to things I can do is I can compare two campaigns, as I said. So what I did was I created a custom segment for CPC and their data share promo. And again, you can pick whatever two campaigns you want. And then I went down here to the e-commerce overview page, because what I'm interested in looking at is this average order value, as I mentioned before. And what I'm seeing here is that my average order value is $130. The average order value here for my CPC is 73. And so if I'm dumping money into both of these, where do you think I'm going to dump the most money in? My e-commerce conversion rate is 9.87 versus 1.52. I have 1,300 transactions. You getting the idea? And so basically I'm looking at this, and obviously my revenue is a lot higher. I'm looking at this saying, okay, this is probably, you know, I'm obviously going to want to spend more money in my data share promo. Especially, and again, it's more sessions that I'm driving people to, so I'm assuming that that's what Google Merchandise Store decided to do. But it's certainly something that you're going to want to look at, as you know, if you walk into this and you have no idea what's going on. So this is again kind of a bonus, but it really asks you, the question you're asking when you do this is, should I move my money into one and away from another? And in this case, I probably would say yes. So in your notepad, what you're going to be writing down is you're going to have the indexed business value between free and earned versus paid media. And so these would be going back to and looking at the sources and looking at those sources that you're getting free and earned, meaning organic search versus paid media, which is like your campaigns. And so also free and earned would be direct and organic. And so in terms of the next thing that you're going to want to work on, it's the one example of a missed opportunity. So I've named a few as we were going through here, but you're going to look at this and say, hey, listen, you're really missing the opportunity too. And so, for example, attribute value to your goals, and here's why. You're going to want to provide one example of campaigns for possible killing. And I just, you know, taking a look at the CPC. And again, this is just one slice of the CPC, but we might want to take a look at killing the CPC. And then you're going to also want to find one surprise in terms of the average order value based, maybe, from e-commerce data, because the client, and this might be usually something positive that I would bring to them, because the client would really appreciate it. But sometimes I can't find a lot of positive things, so I might bring them something that I found on average order value, and they're, you know, hanging their hat on CPC and they think it's doing great. And at the end of the day, we find out that it's really having an average order value that's quite low compared to the rest of the things that they're spending money on. And so then, you know, they're able to make decisions based on monetary metrics, and they're able to do things versus based on what Bob over in marketing is saying and how great the CPC campaign is going.